We're live on YouTube, that's why. You're just supposed to be that one.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Arias, staff, and guests. Bienvenidos a las amigas que están aquí hoy. Thank you for joining us today. For those who are also online, we will now call this regular board meeting into order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we all have the agenda before us. I am going to move to amend and adopt the agenda, moving item number 7, which is executive session, to the end of today's meeting. So it will be number 9 for today. I can second that. All in favor of adopting the agenda? Please aye. Aye. Thank you. Motion passes with a 5-0 vote. Next, we have staff, students, and school recognition. Woodburn High School will be presenting Ms. Nash.
Good evening, board members, superintendent bodies and families. Thank you for the opportunity to highlight some of our wonderful staff members and share the work that we have at the high school. To start with, I'd like to recognize the classified staff, our head custodian, Felipe. He is one of our champions behind the scenes, and he works really hard to make sure our school is clean and welcoming for our students and families. Felipe works really hard with his team to ensure their school is a place of pride, not only for students during the day, but during the evening and nights that we host. Adela is our program secretary. She consistently shows her dedication to students, staff, and families. She manages her responsibilities and support the school's events and activities as well. One of Adela's commitments to our school development is Saturday school. She personally calls every family to make sure that students know that they have been referred to Saturday school. And she personally, she uses a district van that she provides transportation for students. So we're really proud of the work that's really been with Della throughout the high school. And I'm not sure if they're doing that, but hopefully they'll be able to join us a little bit later. And we also have certified staff.
Yeah. We would like to recognize Caleb Thurston and Nadia Maximoff this evening. Both are integral parts of our performing arts department at the high school. Caleb leads our theater department and Nadia is part of our music department with band and mariachi. We wanted to recognize both of them this evening for really going above and beyond with numerous events and productions that they put on throughout the year, but also making sure kids have a safe community at school and being part of the community. So Caleb, I think is here. Yeah. Yes. Is Nadia here?
We also have. We also have some students to recognize, first are our students who are involved in Safe Oregon and Safe Oregon ambassadors. They are part of a team of students who's working to think about how we can. Improve and increase how our student populations understand what Safe Oregon is and how to access it and. What our responses can be. So for this, we have Cesar Aguilera Felix, Antonelli Covarrubias, Michelle Enriquez, and Melissa DeSilva.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's also my pleasure to talk about a couple more students from the Willamette Career Academy. So one of the things the Willamette Career Academy does is every month they look at one of the career-related learning standards and they have students focus on it. So the teachers in their classrooms are focusing on these career-related learning standards with their students. And so Martin Zamora and Daisy Ortiz were chosen for the career-related learning standing of self-awareness. So for displaying excellent self-awareness in their classes there at the Willamette Career Academy. So once again, we want to recognize Martin Zamora and Daisy Ortiz.
And I feel like
Here we go. We're gonna get the line.
Is that everybody? We're gonna get a picture.
Have another student.
And that's. No, that's your daughter.
That's fantastic.
Okay. You want to take it? You can fit it, try to get in the picture too. Oh. You're gonna have to be double. There you go. One, two, three. One, two, three. There you go. There you go. Yes.
Thanks. We'd like to highlight the work that we're having, doing at the high schools and, more than happy to answer any questions at the end. Sorry. Yeah, you're good. So our school improvement plan directly supports this district strategic plan. So we're, our focus has been to increase the percentage of regular attendance, the percentage of ninth graders on track, and increase our graduation rate. In order to do this work, we have the following initiatives to support our goals. And one is the intentional professional development around the Marzano instructional framework, focusing on core instruction, creating a sense of belonging in our students and expanding our school safety, while we are also refining our MTSS system. So going to share a little bit more as far as the work that we have been doing with our professional development.
So I'm going to talk about some moving and stretching forward. Looks like our slide is. There we go. Yeah, moving to 13 forward. So we've got two pieces there. So one of the focuses is going to be around professional development and the work we're doing in our PLCs. So our semester one PD focus this year, this semester has been around MTSS and PBIS systems. And we're hoping as we transition to semester two to focus on worker strategies and scaffolded lessons, really targeting specialized instruction for English language learners. So our student learning goals are going to be really focused on, our maps and our classroom data. And we're hoping to really have those goals be data driven and using that Marzano framework for our observations. Some of the challenges we've experienced are time and space to be able to focus on building level initiatives. With some of the changes that have occurred with the PD model, that's one of the challenges that we've experienced is time and space to focus on building level initiatives and needs. I also am going to talk about post-secondary pathways. So this is the work that we're doing to prepare our students for life after high school. So Tony Minetti, the college and career counselor at the high school, has been scheduling a lot of financial nights, college visits, guest speakers. I know he's got a group that are going to be meeting to talk about nursing here soon. The Willamette Career Academy is occurring as well as some college credit and adult classes. Willamette Promise is also an option for students and early college. So a lot of different options there for students. As seniors in graduation, so as 11-12 assistant admin, this is one of my focuses. And so some of the things that are coming up for seniors, the syllabi literacy, we're starting information sessions. So I just conducted a all senior class meeting to start talking about graduation requirements before the end of first semester to start really getting seniors thinking about, those things that are coming up. And one of the focuses of that is like, if you're a senior and you're credit deficient, what are some of the strategies we're going to be using to help you get across the finish line? And so I'm working with counselors and a credit recovery team to talk about things like, do we need to schedule into Grad Alliance class? Do we need to get you credit recovery materials? Are we inviting you to Saturday school, right? Are we using integrated credit recovery options for students? So those are all things we're working on to support graduation, and we'd all like to save a date for graduation of June 8th this year.
For our MTSS system, we've really started with professional development and making sure we're all on the same page about what MTS is and what we starting with tier 1 and just those really strong instructional practices, but then also how are we working in grade level teams to identify students who need additional support and then match them to interventions that will help support what their needs are. So currently our tier 2 interventions are primarily Saturday school and our credit recovery. And that's also one of the challenges is making sure that we have those tier 2 interventions built out to meet the rate of needs that we're noticing our students have. Our other area I'll be talking about is our PBIS systems and school safety. So as you can see up there, we have our first part is our Bulldog Way. That's our tier 1 building wide expectations for students. This was developed with our students feedback. So our 4 areas are safety, responsibility, respect, and community. You can see some of our data that we have from Swiss around referrals by location. Primarily these are happening in the classrooms and in common areas. And then also just our overall behavior data. These are kind of our more major or like admin managed behaviors. We've had 4 students who have been on color contracts. We've had 8 referrals that were due to drug or alcohol reasons and 2 specific gang related altercations.
I'm gonna ask you a quick question.
Okay.
You said that the fights are referrals. When you say sorry, I think I heard you. So in that where it says class, is that the teacher giving a referral?
Right, so there's so for those, for the fights, those are the different areas where fights pop in. So there's been one in classrooms, most of it's been in the common areas. Sorry, didn't say that very well.
And the bathrooms, I know, for example, like 9th graders or like where Webb's is located, where, when you say bathrooms, when I'm thinking of the high school, where is that in location to? Like what bathrooms? Is this like the juniors, seniors? Is this freshman,
We have seen
sophomore?
it more in the small comments, actually the ones right in the middle.
Okay. And is that mostly open to everyone? Yeah. Thank you.
Next quick, sorry about that. So being that, I mean, the answer is that it's more located in small commons. Is there anything implemented knowing that that's where it happens most? What kind of procedures or safety plans are there to focus on that area? Because if it's happening more in small commons.
Right, we do bathroom sweeps, we do, if we have a 10-10 rule, we're trying to reduce the amount of traffic that happens in the hallways. We kind of, we restricted during like fourth period is when we have our 2 lunches. To restrict like having students out in the hallway if they're not actually out lunch, if they're supposed to be in their classrooms learning, to reduce the amount of like additional students at lunch. I'm just trying to say that. So those are some of the things that we've done. We do have campus monitors and so we do our regular bathroom sweeps as well. So we are trying to be more present and engaged and use active supervision strategies to reduce the likelihood of what's happening.
We also have a loyal parent volunteer that's been right, from saying that she's supervised, active and supervised. And staff are there as well.
And has it, has it worked pretty well thus far?
Yeah, we can see, compared to previous data, we can see actually the numbers are pretty low. It's not as low as we would like to, right? But we, if we look at data from previous years, we have seen a tremendous increase of incidents.
And I only ask because obviously safety is priorities.
And our campus monitors also have a schedule. We check in restaurants every 20 minutes. That way, we have someone also on cameras most of the day. They kind of follow groups of students and they are on radio letting us know you might want to go here or there. And so we have increased supervision as far as like on camera, on the ground. But that way, if we know that something is happening or about to happen, we have time frames, we have people who are assigned to specific areas that can be either writing reports or communicating with each other.
I feel like we hear from students, that the response time is really quick now that we have the cameras in place, like I said, people are gonna be there quick.
Yeah.
They even say it, so.
So what areas don't have cameras?
There are cameras everywhere.
Not
Not inside the restaurants.
Except the
Except the restaurants and except classrooms, the building is covered.
In our common areas and our hallways.
Would this be the same for outdoors, outside?
Outside parking lot, it's covered in buildings.
Can you speak a bit to the drug and alcohol referrals?
So in the past, every time we had a student that was either caught smoking or drinking, we immediately refer them to drug and alcohol counselor. The practice changed this year and now it's like it's not right at the first incident, but when we notice a pattern, and it's usually like an intake, not an intake, but administrators or counselors kind of having conducting that interview and seeing like does the student need to be referred or is it something that it was a one-time incident? But the first thing that happens is the communication with parents, and usually parents are pretty open to let us know, like, this has been happening at home or this has never happened. And so based on that conversation with families, we make it an option and we'll say we have different resources at the school that we can have available for you in the event that this is the first incident, but you don't consider that. For the most part, of course, students who have, at least the ones that we have processed, that had recurring incidents, they have already they're receiving already treatment. So I can think of 2 particular ones that the families are like, do not refer them to the school yet because they're already receiving services through my health insurance, or they already have legal counseling. But we do have some that we have processed this year that they have already been referred from last year. So we're following up and seeing like what's happening. They were already referred, what's the status. And usually our drug and alcohol counselor is pretty good as far as letting us know, like, yes, they're on treatment, no, they decline. That is the communication that happens between that specialist and the family. Once they start treatment, the information we receive is pretty limited because it's confidential. All we can do is just refer to them and the family can decide how to proceed. But we do have two specific, really intense situations right now where they are receiving treatment outside of school. And we're seeing that more with younger students.
Younger, like freshmen? Thank you.
No worries. And then also I see the gang related altercations. How do you guys deal with that? Because from what I hear, I mean, it's a growing issue. I mean, what does the school recognize to work on quashing that? Because anybody can say gang members and sadly they think colors, clothes, whatnot. How do you guys work with that? I mean, what would you guys say would be a good starting point in regards to quashing gang altercations, gang related altercations?
There are different, like to talk about gangs it's a complicated issue because sometimes we see like color and then we'll like it automatically assume that it's a gang related. We try to see is there a pattern? Is it more than one indicator? Is it in association with other students? Is it a behavior that is being either with intent to intimidate or so like we have to look at different aspects of what's happening. But once we say, okay, we have this conversation, this is a pattern, or this happened, there was an incident in the community that it was a gang related issue that transferred to the school. Then we, the first thing that we do is involve our SRO and then decide like how to proceed. Usually they have additional information for us if it's something that is really big. If it's something that is like small, where we can say a student can be in a color contract, in a if he's having issues with another student or someone from a different color, then it's a no contact contract, communication with family as far as the expectations that we have for students. Because we can't just say like, don't talk to someone or don't wear this color without informing families. So every time that we go through this process, we reach out to families and we'll say, okay, come in, we have to put this in place. And also trying to explain that it's not only because we don't want your child to wear that color, it's also sometimes trying to explain, you know, it can be easily related to something and we are trying to also protect your child. And so how is it perceived in the community? That there's sometimes like signs or thinking that we're just fooling, just hanging out. And so trying to teach students that sometimes that behavior can trigger a reaction from other students. But it's a lot of education and a lot of conversations, a lot of reflecting with students. And that has been the work that I think the team has been engaging, even the students with, we're struggling with parties and hanging out in the hallways. And so how do we have those one-on-one conversations with students as far as like trying to teach you and not punish you for something that perhaps you have not learned, or it was like something that was allowed before. And so it's the teaching and the and holding students accountable. With that direct conversations with families, like I met with your child today, and this was the conversation that we had. Please support me at home. And so, is it a reality that our students are facing? Absolutely. It's on the streets. It's everywhere. We are trying to make sure that students know that when they come to school, they're there to learn, and so just hold them accountable to that.
Are they pretty receptive to that?
For the most part, yes. We have a couple of them, and most of those are some of the numbers there that are really resistant to that. But it's the good thing is that it's a complicated situation sometimes because it depends on family dynamics as well. And so how do we make sure that we have that conversations with parents when it's something that it has been learned and supported? So those are difficult conversations to have with families.
Do you,
But,
sorry, do you mean when families practice the same lifestyle or
Yeah.
dress code or?
Yeah, dinner, yeah, it's just it's that pride, right? That it's so.
I think as far as if you're talking about it in terms of like as a whole community, what to do, I think a lot of it is young people having pro-social positive activities. I mean, you know, I think adolescents are gonna fill their time. And it's not just within the school day, but but what's available in the community that's giving students that same positive sense of, belonging and, we're going to talk about student belonging as well, but that sense of community belonging, purpose, and having those positive things to fill the hole that's there.
In our conversations with SROs, they have also shared that gangs are kind of targeting younger students just because they can actually commit or crimes and not being, punished for it. And so or held, in the legal system accountable for it. And so how do we teach the students and protect them and engage them in other activities that it's kind of moving them away from that? Because we know right now they're really like being actively targeted. So our younger students way before high school.
Yes.
And
We do work with students, POs, they do have them, and that's sometimes also what we learn about, like the students' involvement in their prior game, and find out about that.
We have a weekly supervision meeting, or Monday meetings to talk about, we invite our SRO and talk about, were there any incidents in the community that they need to be aware of, just to have a plan in place, or just to kind of start having conversations with students before it really transfers. And we learned that the hard way from last year, like incidents that we happen. So we're doing a lot of that proactive. SROs are really good about communicating with us. As far as like, hey, this happened and it might transfer, you might see something. So having a plan in place before it starts.
So for instance, sorry,
go ahead.
when they're transitioning into the high school, you already know there's some students that are. You need to be aware of because of some sort of incident during, for instance, the summer.
Yes.
And
So we usually have a transition meeting with the middle school administrators or counselors. It is the same with special education students and like students who have a safety plan, behavior plan. So that happens way before students actually walk into my building. So it's a transition meeting.
Have you seen any, because it's happening, have you seen any warning signs as to what they could be for pressing kids, targeting kids, any identifiers that you guys would be like, yeah, we got to address that issue right there, or that issue?
Not actively at school, no, but we know it happens in the community a lot. It's just as students talk, but not at school. Not that I'm aware of.
And it's just in general, because it says gang related altercations is 2. But overall, just violence in general, I'm assuming that number's way higher.
We see the number there, there's been like 5 total fights with that included 2 students, so it says 10, but it's like 10 total students with 5 total incidents, and then we have some other that were not like mutual fight, but those are our fight numbers.
I mean, because this is something that obviously we want to look at even more in the near future, because obviously it's safety again, so.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's like prevention, right? I mean, it's already happening here, but how can we prevent it in the near future and the near locations, right?
Well, interestingly enough, I'll share a little conversation I had with a student, and he said, Mrs. Nash, you're gonna see it more here because it's safe to fight at school. Like fights happen here and they don't last that long. They last 10 seconds and then you have an adult there. When we do that on the streets, they last longer and they can have weapons.
And they're more violent.
And so it is basically we have earned their trust. They can fight us because they'll have something, so they can keep their pride and they'll say, I'm gonna fight, but they someone is gonna still be right. So that's basically what's happening.
I got follow up. So just out of curiosity, I probably know the answer, but just to hear from your perspective. So you're saying younger kids are being targeted, and then just looking at the attendance graph, 9th grade has the biggest attendance gap.
Absolutely.
I'm assuming that a lot of that has to do with targeting. I mean, how much would you say from roughly?
I couldn't say that their attendance is directly related to gangs, but I do can tell you that we're struggling with attendance and keeping students engaged. And so, our team has been like writing students for postcards, has been making calls and have been, making attendance meetings. We have an attendance committee. We have an MTSS that is covering attendance. But it's a huge, struggle at, and not only attendance as far as being present, but also the, attendance as far as showing up to class on time. And so it's tardies is the attendance and it's the,
And that goes right into our next slide, actually. Attendance is a huge focus for the high school right now, and we're really primarily focused on kids in the building with tardies. And getting them to class on time, and one way we're getting them to class is offering them that reflection time, like, why are you late to class? So if they're more than 5 minutes late, they get swept to the bulldog room where they fill out a reflection form. And then an adult checks one-on-one with them to kind of do skill building and goal setting with them, and to dig deeper and understand some of the challenges that they actually do face, which is waking up late. Sometimes they do really just want to socialize. A lot of times they say there's too many kids in the bathroom, they have time management problems, and even going back into the classroom if they're late, it's a problem.
And just to follow up also, so with this whole thing, and I'm saying because that's obviously an issue with the gangs, whatnot. So with these kids, you know, because Woodward's all about data. With that being said, when there's follow-up with these kids that are tardies and missing school and whatnot, in the follow-up, are they specifically asked, why are you missing school? Because I mean, I'm assuming that they'd be open to sharing, like, I'm scared, you know, because I'm being threatened, I'm being pressed, I'm being targeted to an extent. And so to grab some data to know how to go about addressing that specific issue in the attendance.
It's pretty widespread. I don't know that it's all based around that. And we ran some October numbers, you know, the majority of students have been late at least a few times, the vast majority of students. So it's not like I can say there's probably a small percentage of students who are having some more chronic attendance issues, but there's just some kind of widespread issues around timeliness and attendance in general.
So when you say, go ahead. Go ahead. So when you say chronic, what percentage is that?
I mean, in terms of the state, well, okay, I'd say we look kind of specifically at the state definition of chronically absent is students who miss more than 10% or more of school. And that was 42% last year. But you're chronically absent. The way that's calculated though is technically to be considered absent for the day would have to miss more than half the day. So a student could conceivably miss first period every day, and the state size be a regular attender who has 100% attendance because they're not missing at least half of the day. So we have to, as a team, we really have to sort of dig down, and I think everybody is really focusing on that and trying to see, you know, we had an example of a student who, according to state calculations, had 100% attendance, but missed one particular period 28 times. So, so I think you really have to sort of dig down beyond just what you can see in the programs. I believe in October there were 122 students who hadn't had any tardies or absences for the month. So out of 1,600. Now there are students who just had a handful, of course, but it is a really widespread issue, and you can kind of see that ninth grade is a big part of it. It shrinks with time.
And from all the interviews we had with students, I didn't experience it, at least a single one who said like, well, I'm being targeted because of gangs. That's information that students don't volunteer. And so they might make up any excuse, although sometimes you think that there might be something going on that students don't just tell you. And so sometimes if they're talking to families, they might tell you like, oh, they changed a group of friends, or you know, something like that, or she's like struggling waking up, or she stays up late. But nothing that would say I could directly quote a student saying like, oh, I'm just being targeted and or I'm afraid, or we do have some students saying that they're going on anxiety and other social emotional aspects, but not calling it.
For our ninth graders were, can we kind of trace it back to middle school? Can we go as far as?
Probably the book now.
I mean, I guess I'm just, if we're talking about prevention. If it's happening at the high school at ninth grader, it's likely happening in middle school.
When I was talking about prevention, I was talking like collaboration with our community, right? We have a lot of community-based organizations in the area that can help us. We also have residents that live in complexes that it's easier to target and go and facilitate some information, so on. So that's what I was thinking in terms of not only preventing or talking to the child, to the student, but also overall the entire community, right?
And we do have monthly meetings with our community members in the police department to see like what either recreational groups or engagement opportunities we can have for students. And so that has been ongoing conversations with them. Mr. Bully and administrators across the district and Superintendent Larios are part of it.
Yeah, I can add on a little bit about those meetings that are established and are happening once a month, and these are being coordinated by the city of Woodburn because the city recognizes, the community recognizes this is a need beyond, this isn't just school need, this is the community. And thinking about those proactive measures to be able to create those pro-social spaces for kids or mentoring different engagement activities. So those are monthly meetings that happen, and the city's invested creating a staff member now to be able to coordinate and facilitate those conversations with the goal of creating more spaces for kids.
And then one of our goals is creating a sense of belonging for students. That's how we are working on it or going about it at the school.
Yeah. Sorry, and advisory is one of those places that we're really using instructional time purposefully to communicate with our students. And we're restructuring advisory this way, so we're working on organizational skills, social emotional skills, we're building in some career and college exploration for them. And we are also like having structured reteaching and reinforcing expectations for them as well at that time.
As well as incorporating some new student engagement, or not so new, but celebrating students. We have our coffee bar tomorrow. You're more than welcome to join us. It's the show. So our students, we had our first one about a month ago, and that was focused on students wearing their IDs, and so it was pretty popular. And this time we focus on keeping our school clean, and so we have our next celebration tomorrow morning. We have a student roundtable, which we're receiving feedback from students as far as like how are things going at school, and they're pretty good about giving you feedback. They're pretty honest. And so we're kind of taking that feedback into account either to modify or revise their lessons. They had pretty, I would say, honest feedback about it. You know, our lessons have a lot of text and we make it fun, and so things like that. But it's a way for them to feel like, you know, they have an input on it, what things need to be included. We have, of course, our bonfire. Positive postcards that our teachers are writing for students. Saturday school tutoring, we're doing movie premieres. We have our link crew team. We have our Tinkle Times newsletter that's written by students. And some community involvement.
I think one note about Saturday school is about 75% of this, we have over 100 students most Saturdays they're coming in. 75% of those students are coming on their own. They're not referred, they're not, you know, being required to come, they're coming by choice. And I think that speaks to the school feeling like a safe place and a place that helps meet their needs too. So community involvement has been exciting. The leadership program in classes has expanded at the high school. Under two of our teachers, we have Jace Rogers from the middle school who's coming up and doing some leadership work, and Luke Cervetta was our choir teacher at the high school who also does activities. So if you came out to trunk or treat, it was a huge success. had to make an emergency candy run partway through. There were so many people. We had our open house, which was also well attended, our student-led conferences. We have had guest speakers in, we've had our family nights. The ninth grade barbecue was a huge hit. And winter sports nights are coming up as well. So we're trying to get the community into the school while we're also trying to have our students, be out as part of the community as well.
What time is the coffee bar Wednesday?
It starts around 8:15 to 8:45, around 8:45.
Okay. Yes, whatever. Some of the traditions that are coming up. No, the right-hand side is not a part of our student discipline. It was actually a well-planned and safe bonfire that was well attended. If you came out, we actually had a student band that was performing and providing music. It was just a really good sense of camaraderie, communication, connection with students. And I know for me, coming back to the high school after several years, these have been some great opportunities to really meet students and talk to them in a different kind of setting and get to know some names and faces. And again, the trunk or treat was a huge hit. And I thought the part that went along with that is the outreach to the community as far as getting supplies donated and brought in, and giving our students a chance to put themselves out in the community and see that they're supported and that there are businesses and organizations that want to support students in the schools. And I think that's an important message for students as well.
And then we're also focusing on a lot of co-curricular activities, including athletics, a wide range of things for kids to do outside their school day to connect them to the classroom. So those are ways to tie them to their education, and it really hopefully motivates them to come attend class every day. So so far we've in the middle of winter sports. Here's some of our numbers. We pretty much offer everything that OSAA does. Great numbers in fall sports, often running in winter sports, and the student athletes are doing a great job at 385 student athletes. So far, spring is actually our largest season as far as numbers. So when I think of 385, we're easily going to be 685, close to 700 student athletes out of the high school over the course of the year. So those are great numbers. So we're excited about that. You look onto the other things, and the next slides are just not only do we have athletics, but it's co-curricular. There's lots of different things for kids. Band and choir is amazing. They do a great job, those directors and those instructors, and participating in pep bands and mariachi. And I think that was a picture from the parade that we had. Lots of different clubs, theater, presentations and performances. I'm not going to touch on all of these because we could be here for a long time, but we have lots of different staff that are committing, time every week to connect with kids. Honor Society, Key Club, Garden Club, FFA, the list goes on. I think we put like 24 different clubs. The last one outlines the last little bit, but as you can see, and you go through if you want to spend some time on those slides, it's really driven by our student voice club. So they've had opportunities to connect in advisory to even start clubs on their own. That's how a lot of these started over the last couple of years. So it's not, I guess, targeted to a specific one group. It's lots of kids, lots of safe spaces, and we feel really good about that, meeting their needs.
And lastly, we'd like to invite you to our a site visit on Thursday, December 14th from 1:30 to 3:30 or 3 o'clock. You can stay until 3:30 if you want, but you might want to avoid dismissal. We would love to have you in the building. I know Melanie has been there already, but we need to come and see what we're working on.
I did have a question. Yes. Do you have an idea about what percentage of our students participate in extracurricular activities?
Not right. I can get.
Because I know that we offer a lot, but I'm just curious. to know,
Well, each
like,
class has about 15, 10, 15, 20 students enrolled. That depends on like the time of the year. Sometimes numbers are lower if we're getting closer to finals and things like that, attendance drops. But each, I would say around between at least estimate 10 per club is about 210 students.
I can throw out a number pretty fast. I mean, it's gonna be real close to that. 200 in the clubs, and then you add theater, choir, and band, you're at 400. The number in student athletes is 700 and something, but you do have multi-sport athletes, right? So let's say it's another 400, you're looking at 75% of the student athletes are better. 75% are in something. Maybe 70, it might be a little high on that, but we could pull that number.
I would just be curious to know what attendance looks like across. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that what you presented, but I'm just kind of curious, kind of given that our budget has been cut from last year to this year, and just thinking of the future, how has the budget impacted either direct or indirect services to students?
We have definitely felt the impact, especially when it comes to clubs and after school activities, because most of them were like funded through ESSER last year. And I think it's something that our district office was pretty clear as far as like don't get used to this money, and this is just and we should have been like really clear about it when we started operating those this is for this year, or we can only do this. And so now that our title funding, it's a lot less, and we have lots of ESSER funding. So our opportunities for students are not as wide, right? I think last year when we presented clubs, the number was a lot higher because teachers were being compensated for it. Right now, it's really it's challenging for teachers to volunteer their time after school, especially they're overworked, and when they stay after, it's just either for grading or tutoring or doing something else that is away from clubs. But yes, we definitely felt the impact, especially some things that we wanted to do with tier 2 interventions and things that would be ideal if we had additional funding. But we are being creative as far as how to build them within the school day without having to pay that extended time. And also because sometimes like students do not stay after school, they also either have sports activities or they have to work. So how are we creative as far as how do we build it? One of the things that we were using extra money for too was the credit recovery after school. And so looking at numbers, it wasn't really like we didn't have the numbers to kind of justify this expense. And so that's why we built credit recovery into the schedule. And instead we have Saturday school, which is a better option for them because they have an extended period of time that they can get more support from a certified staff as well.
So if these clubs are low funded or short funded, have the children been willing to, or students, excuse me, been willing to look at other avenues such as fundraising or?
And we have right now, like I should say, like we have enough clubs for students to participate. We also have many teachers volunteering their time instead doing extra things, either celebrations or tutoring. We have some morning time assigned for family connections. And so those teachers are also opening their doors to say, if you need to take that test or if you need some help with your assignments, just come in. And so there are things that are already like opportunities that are there for students and for teachers, but definitely is not how we had it last year, just because of the extra funding that we had.
And when you say family connection, how early in the morning is that?
That's usually from 7:35 to 8:20, and we know that is a challenge. And so most of our classified staff secretaries, homeschool contacts, what they teachers do is kind of send their information to one of our staff so they can make that phone call after school, like when families are available. or sometimes even Saturdays. Adela, yes, she does most of the consults on Saturdays as well, or Friday late at night to let families know that, that's, they either have been referred to Saturday school or they will be, provided transportation or that something is happening. And so we do try to, modify those hours or, pair classified extended. For that.
I think you might have staff that hasn't been recognized, did you?
Yes, I okay, thank God, here we go.
Oh.
Ya estamos tempranito.
Oh,
Aquí está. And we're looking forward to seeing you on Thursday. Still being stuff. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. If you have any questions, you feel free to email us. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Moving on to our next agenda item, public comments. Not public comments. So moving on to agenda number 4 is report. And next is board reports. So this is the board members to share how they've been involved in our district. Go ahead, Santa Claus.
I don't wanna, I'm not running out on everybody, we just had our first league game tonight, so it's over for basketball. And I got supervision, so I'm gonna get up there and supervise.
Yes, good luck. Thank you.
For the board reports, my involvement in the community was this a week ago. I know a guy who's been doing Santa Claus for 10 years for the city and loves every minute of it. And so I was able to interact with the children and the community leaders in regards to being Santa Claus for the city and be able to, lead the gifts and just having fun and seeing their faces of life, just happy and excited that Santa Claus is there. Literally brings joy to my heart to see this, to work with the kids and the community as Santa Claus, but nobody knows that. So, but yeah, so that was my involvement with the community this week.
I unfortunately have nothing to report with sickness in my house and kids getting injured.
I had an opportunity last week to listen to a podcast about happiness. And I travel all over the state, statewide. My job is to do statewide. So every time I sit with family members from any other district, it's the same problematic that we have here. We have COVID, we have fires, we have other things on top of each other. And every time it's about emotional and self-care. So we're putting together a package of self-care for some of our communities that suffers the same as our communities here. So my contribution is not directly, but it's about how can we bring resources to our communities that can impact our families? So we could be aware of what's going on in the schools, what's going on outside the schools. And so on. So I'm usually talking to parents from migrant programs all over the state, wanting to be able to participate in school boards. And so that's what I was doing last week on Learning Week. And so I bump into this Oprah Winfrey and Arthur Brooks. They have a podcast on happiness. This is a professor that teaches about happiness. And so it's something that it was very incredible, and so I was like, this is great for our families, right? So it not only looking out for the families in one area, but I'm also looking out for families all over the state, so that's my contribution.
I also attended the making meeting, I wasn't there. But it was nice to see our students and families just enjoy that time with their families as well as chocolate and also basketball started. So my youngest and I attended the game as well as we participated this weekend. Santa were part of Lovey, and so doing some gift wrapping for our families, for some of the families in our community. And it's been a really neat time to give back to our community, but also to teach my own kiddos the importance of giving back. Yes. Everyone for sure. So our next item is Office of the Superintendent.
I'll invite our IT director, Corinne Albert, to come and join us and just share a little bit about the work that the IT department is doing in moving our mission forward and thinking about how to continue to move the goals of our strategic plan, which we're all working towards in different ways and impact. And so with the work of IT in this sense, you welcome her to join us at the department and share about the exciting work of technology.
All right, so is board member Medina online? No. Okay. I added a little piece of content for him because he asked about artificial intelligence, so we can cover more of it later. Thanks, Jenny. And then gives us some music. So tonight we'll talk a little bit about AI, generative AI specifically, both in our district and statewide. And then we'll talk about some projects that technology's been working on and some cost savings over the last year or so. And then we've got some direct links to some goals, actually some strategies within the strategic plan for the district. So we'll talk about those a little bit. And then we'll give you some classroom examples as well. So I'm going to mix this up probably a little bit depending on, we have a teacher that came from our middle level and she's got 2 students coming as well. And I want to cover their content first so we can get them back home before it gets too late. They're not here yet. So I'm going to go over some of the other content when they get here, just switch it up. And then you can ask them some questions if you want to. They're specifically in our app building class, which is a computer science class that I'm looking at. Okay, so AI was the first one. Board member Medina asked about it as a future board agenda item. So what I linked here, and you will get the PowerPoint as well, or the slide deck as well. Okay, so you can check these out. I won't dwell on it too much. But the Oregon Department of Education just came out with guidance and I was help on that. So you'll see my name on the front page. I did a little reading of it. I helped because we had already written some guidance here. We don't have policy, obviously. You haven't seen any policy, but we do have some protocol. So that's the next link on there. A lot of the way that we have tackled it, and I think the staff received it in their staff promise. I want to say in October, I have to look back. But this was linked in there, and mostly what we've talked about is that teachers really need to get to know how generative AI works, and also how their students write. So getting accustomed to the way that they write, and then that all that concern about cheating really kind of is, as long as they know how their kids write when they turn in something that maybe has gone through a ChatGPT or some other tool, then they know that it's really not the product of the student. There are also some really great tools that use AI that the implications for kids as they grow up are really that they need to learn to use these in a productive way. It's one of the things that we talk about in our planning is that kids really need to know how to ask a good question to get anything out of ChatGPT. We use it all the time in technology. Really. I introduced a tool to admin this summer called Magic School AI. It's a website similar to ChatGPT, but it's specific to education. So it's helpful in writing things like IEP goals. And the way I introduced it was really, it is a great way to start. You don't want to end up there. And then because it does a lot of the busy work for us, we get to really focus on what the community needs are in terms of those things that are being generated. And they get to focus on the student and the family. Any questions about, and I can do more on AI if you need.
Is this the first we've used AI here in the school district, or how long has we gone?
I don't, well, I mean, AI has been around for a while. If we, we've had predictive text within email turned on for a long time in our Google domain. Google Docs does the same thing. Anytime the kids are using a Chromebook, they've got access to some kinds of AI. ChatGPT was only, you can't believe this, it's really only a year old. It was released in November of 2022. So it's advanced a lot over time. And I'm sure we have students using it. I have no doubt. And we have a fabulous consultant with our student services department who also does consulting in other districts. His name is Bruce Alter. So he's actually consulting on the federal level about artificial intelligence. So he's been a really good resource for folks all over the district. And so, yeah, they've got access to it for certain, and possibly even the paid version, right? There's a free version of ChatGPT that's just a little bit behind the version that's paid. So they may even be paying for it at home. So, yeah.
And I mean, I know we're at the school board meetings, talk about the highlights, but from as a director, knowing technology, do you see any drawbacks to it?
Well, there are tons of drawbacks to it. I think what we've kind of recommended for teachers is they really have to get to know the tool. Because it's skewed. It just, what it does is scrape information off of just websites on the internet. And so it's only as good as the people that are contributing online. So having them be really, really careful. I listened to a great podcast the other day with this, she's the first woman of color to graduate with a computer science degree from MIT. And she said, I asked ChatGPT to write an essay about me. And she said it was this well-written essay, it was fantastic. None of it was true. So it had scraped, all kinds of different information from what was actually accurate. So kind of warning people about the inaccuracies that it can, but it's improving at a really rapid rate. It's amazing how much better ChatGPT is now than it was later. Or I mean, when it was first released. This is actually AI that kind of teaches itself, essentially. So.
And is there a specific class that's used more for, or is it used all across the board?
I would imagine kids are using it a lot for their writing. But I don't know the pockets of where it is used, except, I mean, I've talked to teachers who use it on an iPhone, said, this is amazing, that's Magic School AI after, but I don't know where it's being used or just it's using it. So
I dabbled with that tool.
yeah.
I haven't used it yet, but I've dabbled with it a little bit. I see benefits to be able to increase efficiency.
Yeah, and our teachers are probably using it in their classes, but yeah, that's a good question. We can ask around.
So Magic goes for teachers.
Yes, that's focused specifically on teachers to just like I said, save some time so that they can really focus on students and that sort of what they need independently or individually. Are you ready? Any other questions about AI? Okay, so we're gonna switch to the STEAM kind of, I think it's on the last page, yeah. So one of our goals is to increase access to STEAM and to contribute to that CTE pathway. And it's also technology is woven through our APID as well. So the district-wide, the strategic plan goal is really around CTE pathways, but we're increasing STEAM opportunities for kids at the middle level. So right now we have a couple of computer science classes available. We have Giselle and Juliana. Both 8th graders, although you kind of introduced yourself with you. I have some questions for them, because they were kind of nervous about, they have lots of. Awesome, but I told them I'll just ask them questions about their projects. And then they're gonna show you a tool that they're using in their classes as well. So, one of the things that computer science really does well is teach creative problem solving that then branches to other content areas. So what Giselle and Juliana have had to do is find solutions to some pretty complex problems, and it's motivating. So what we're hearing from kids at the middle level is, I'm persevering through this because I want to see it work. So it's pretty cool. I love spending time in Sydney's classroom, and then Nicole Montero is teaching the same classes over at Valor. We also have a publications class that is happening at French Prairie, not yet at Valor. And then we have a career explorations class that's happening in both places as well, kind of to differing degrees. So those are the highlighted kind of STEAM opportunities that kids have at the middle level now. We're hoping to expand them. Okay, so there are a few concepts that I want to explain that the girls have been working on kind of through robotics, through app creation, which is what I'll also ask. One term is decomposition, which is where they take a large problem and they break it up into smaller parts. And that doesn't just fit for computer science, that would fit for any project work that they're doing, even outside of the core content areas, within the core content areas. Another one is pattern recognition. So it's that analysis of the small objectives to then better understand the problem they're trying to solve. And then abstraction is the sort of weeding out of important information when you're doing some research. So we'll talk about app creation. They had to focus on one big piece of content and then whittle away at it and kind of take the irrelevant details out and focus on the big content. And then algorithms, you probably all heard that term before. It's what all apps use for kind of logic, but it also fits into anything where you're trying to solve a problem and you're developing the steps to solve that problem. So an algorithm fits into math and science and all kinds of different things where there's a bigger problem that they're trying to solve, and it's that sort of boiled down. Okay, so as far as kid created apps, which is up to about 8th graders, correct? And you're taking this class right now. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay. So first, how did you decide? Okay, so they built apps. You can kind of explain, you know what an app is, right? You download it on your phone, it does something specific, it connects to websites, all kinds of things. So these kids have all built apps. Sydney, where are we? It's like you're over there. Sorry. We're done with that. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. So all concluded. So how did you decide on the content that you put into your app? Giselle, first, what did you do your son? Soccer player. Okay. So how did you decide?
My first option. Microphone is on the by the box.
Oh.
Yeah, the cordless microphone.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
My first option was sleep because I like sleep and I think I know a lot about sleep. But then I thought about it and I didn't think it was a very good option because it's not really a thing people want to know about. So then my second option was Sean Melville because everybody likes soccer. And I knew a lot about him when I was little, and I thought of putting it into a project that I could get a lot of people didn't know about. And I think that's really good.
Great. Juliana, is this on? Is it working? I don't think it's working. Hold it down at the bottom. Not seem to like. Oh, there. Yes. Okay. Juliana, do you want to tell us how you decided on?
I decided on my app. I decided to do Christmas because I enjoy Christmas and it's important to me, and I thought people would like to learn more about Christmas.
All right. Great. So what was challenging about creating an app?
For me, something that was challenging was adding sound because I didn't really remember how to add the sound. And when I would add the code block, it would repeat the sound and it wouldn't stop. So I forgot how to make it stop.
Same was for me was the sound because I've never done sound, but it wasn't too bad.
All right, and you both had sounds in your app, so you were successful. Okay, so the last question is, how can you use the block coding that you used to create your app and what the board members are gonna see tonight later in your life?
Well, for me, I think it could get me a job because there's a lot of jobs that involve coding and technology. I see it on a picture and I saw people that really enjoy technology and coding, and I was like, oh, I could do that too. I think it's pretty cool.
I also think it can help me making it sound because most jobs have coding and coding to keep on.
So fun field trip today. Oh, so it's
The Apple Store, and we went to the Apple Store. And then we went to a bookstore. And then we went to a tech.
Was it coding tech?
It was a coding tech, okay.
And the bookstore was Powell's.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where everybody wants to go. Okay, so we're gonna show you a little bit of this block coding that the girls were talking about. Is anyone familiar with app development or coding? Okay. So this will be new for you and it is exactly what they're saying. This is kind of the first, it's not the first step. They've been at this for quite some time, but you start with a blank slate and all the commands are on one side. So we're gonna pass you these, which are little robots called Spheros, and they are controlled with an app on the iPad. And you're gonna do a little bit of block coding with the help of Juliana and Giselle. And I'm gonna put some, well, it's gonna say yay, nay, and abstain. And you're gonna code your robot to go to one of those based on how you would support STEAM and CTE integration specifically in the future. So I'll put the blue tape on the floor. The girls will get you each an iPad and a Sphero. And before you hand it out, you keep this open for them so they can see what it looks like.
Quick question, you created an app that I can download.
You can't really download it because it was like a personal app that we made. It's on
You can download it, they have to share it publicly.
Can you share it?
It's quite compact.
Yeah.
They use a website called code.org, which has a lot of like private funding behind it. It's very popular. It started as a free sort of resource for kids, and since then it's really grown. And so they use code.org to create their app. You want to go ahead and start handing them out? Are there other questions I can answer while we're getting kind of ready?
Yeah.
Is there a class like this in the high school? Because
There are some coding classes at the high school, and that's why we're trying to create the pathways to get to those folks. We have a couple that are kind of crossover right now, like a math and CS, and now that teacher's going in straight ahead with CS in the future. And then we're building, I mean, Gilda would probably be a better person, or actually. There are offerings at the high school. It's a smattering of things. So like the publications class that the kids are taking at the middle level, they're halfway to that, but we're not quite aligned yet. So what we're trying to do is create some true pathways so that the skills that they learn in middle school then transfer to something bigger and better in high school. So it's lots of conversations. That's why this strategic goal is a big. Okay. So that's Hero. All right, girl. I have to get up sometime. We need some visual. So you'll have to. Start your spirit, so when it connects, you're gonna see the blue light come on. Purple light come on. Yeah, it's, so when you put it, go ahead and put it on this blue.
Mariah put the speakers on the blue.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's.
Right here. Supposed to be. Yeah, and then you'll need it, all right. So here you're. Yeah, you want those to go forward, to the right, the middle, or the left. You know which color you're. Okay. We could move it around.
Correct, there's a color wheel and they can change it to the color.
Perfect. Okay, you see yours?
Oh, I can also.
You can move it like that, but you can also code it.
Is how you. So yours
It's going to be
one, the second one.
Yes.
So you always start with the direction, so the arrows like that show up. Now that I go in that direction.
Yeah.
And then these are the working blocks and drag.
Maybe
to
that
the
we're
workspace. to try to-
Yeah, and
What do we want to just
be? And you're gonna take that block into the.
You want to connect it to the.
This is 100 or 156 or 157. She can grab.
So it's on there, and then, so now you're gonna read it kind of like a sentence, so you're gonna say it's beginning at. And then 0 degrees, so it's gonna roll right at. This, whatever.
Now. It's how many seconds. Oh, shoot.
Pointing
You have
this
to
way.
change that one.
So it's
You have to change it from 0 speed to.
I don't move it for it to go with that, or whichever way you want it.
You want yours to go to the right.
Okay, and so I just drag it there.
Yeah. And then which way do you want it to go? And then how many seconds you need to roll.
How long do you want it?
Let's do 2 seconds. Or-
But
Now, if you hit start, you can see what it, can you see the.
And then they just go.
Yeah.
Maybe the
And then you have to make sure.
It's up.
And then you can start.
That's-
and it will-
that yours?
I mean, I think it's.
That's mine over there.
So going in the direction that you.
Okay, there.
So you tell it to stop. Yeah, you can, up here, there's a start. and stop.
I mean, but, yeah, maybe Mr. Lennox is in front of mine, which like blocked me.
There's a little. Reverse take this from you.
So.
And then you can change the top of the color, so you can, yeah, so you can identify yours, so I change it to red. And you can kind of start over, adjust whatever you need to adjust to get it to the.
yeah, you could add lights. and
Oh,
lights
yeah.
down.
So is that really?
That's all right.
This one in the middle.
This one?
It's gonna be this way, but we want it to go that way, so that means we have to change. No, there it goes. Okay, who's on the name? Was that you?
Try to get there.
All right, So we can make this a little bit easier for you. The block coding can be kind of challenging, but there is a way to just drive these. You did it.
There it goes. Okay. Oh.
Good perseverance.
Supposed to leak. Okay.
There is a driving feature. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you'll need
There. So if you're
I
wondering.
didn't even- you know, it's sad.
You have 3 seconds, I'm gonna give it 5 seconds.
If you left, then yeah.
So, I thought I was just trying to get to a flow.
Well,
You could change the colors if you want.
Oh, cool.
So you're talking.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, I had it in that direction and it was the opposite.
Backwards.
So I'm gonna have-
okay, so spend another like 30 seconds looking at this block coding and then we can do more with robotics.
And keep going.
Just bring it back.
Okay,
Okay.
Oops, thank you.
thank you, girls.
I made it work.
Yay, thanks for being a willing participant.
Thank you.
I know, we'll pick them up.
Mine wants to go to Walmart. Cool, thank you.
Thank
You, so you got a little feel for block coding. Nicely done, good perseverance. You can see why the kids are so motivated to use them, it's pretty fun. And there are some other types of robots that we have in the district. This is a little card, this, Kitty's class has been playing with these little cars. There's no coding with these, actually there is coding, but it's all built into these little squares. So they respond according to whatever color is on here. And they will outgrow these very quickly. Because they just don't do very much of that. But we'll use them, and then the intention is to have both Nicole and Sydney's class go down to the elementaries by the spring. And have a little coding session with some of the littles down there, is it? My perseverance with that. And then the other thing we have are these little robots, again, respond to color. So this bicycle drawing, it's a little, this is where the art part of it comes in. So this bicycle drawing has commands. So this command of blue, green, red, when an Autobot is turned on, which we're not gonna play with these tonight, but when it's turned on and it reads that code, it does something. So it says turn around or something like that, and then it will turn around, and each one of these codes means something different. Speed up, stop, those kinds of things. So just like the block codes that you had where you were programming in how many seconds and what degree it was gonna go, all these little robots respond in different ways. But the commands are very similar. It's all kind of relates to how computer science works. They're all just, if the user does this, then I want you to do this. So any questions, any last questions for Giselle and Juliana about computer science?
You
You
said,
answered. Okay, what's up?
you said job. Right now at this point, what do you see? What kind of job would you want?
Well, I don't know. It could depend because like certain jobs to do a specific thing that you want it to do, you have to code it to do what you want it to do. And yeah.
For me, it's depending on what type of coding I'll be doing and for what. So there's different types of coding jobs. For apps, you can, well, there's that coding for apps, and there's coding for robots. And for me personally, I like to build a lot of stuff. So if
in the future, if I would find like a coding job, I would lean toward making coding robots and stuff. Because I personally like stuff like that, so I think this is a pretty good thing, for finding a job in the future.
So do you guys have like a exhibit or talent show of what you guys the stuff that you've made to show to community and to parents?
So really. good
To in a way to engage other kids to join their class.
That's a great segue, actually. We're trying to get more kids, and so the opportunities are there, but these classes are sometimes very small. And also there aren't enough girls. So the fact that we have 2 girls here is kind of, it's sort of skewed results because I think most of them are boys. So we are looking at some ways to highlight the opportunities, especially at the middle level. So we're talking about possibly adding an opportunity in 6th grade where kids get to see a lot of different types of electives, not just STEAM and CTE, but other kinds. So we are looking at ways to do that, and I think the community would benefit from something.
And a publication also really wants to come in and video and create a video of the things that we're doing.
Yeah, so that publication's fast, they're working together very closely. Sydney and Liza, at least, who is teaching that class, are right next door to each other, so there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration.
How big are the classes now?
Like 10 to 15. Their class is the biggest class. The smallest class I have is 12. Yeah. So the biggest class I have with them is our 15.
And it's a class opportunity fighters. Those kids will begin. Did you take this class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the class, just at their school or in the district wide.
Valor has the same class that builds apps, and they actually have an HTML class, like web design that you don't see, right? Okay. So there are some, this is again where the sort of alignment to make sure that everybody has the same offerings has to happen. Valor is offering the same one, but they don't have publications. So all of those digital content creation types of opportunities are not over at Valor yet.
And this is an elective.
It is. Anything else? Thank you. Okay, so the content. We have a couple of different things as far as accomplishments. We have 4 foci in technology. They're really focused right now on reliability, security, access, and efficiency. So those things are, let's see, can you do these links work if I do this? No, but which one do you want? This is the reliability one, that'd be great first. Awesome, okay. So there are a few things, I split these up into those 4 categories as far as what's happened over the last year in technology. The big ones you see at the top, I highlighted the ones that are really, really big things. So one of the things that we did is take PowerSchool, which is our student information system. And it was housed over at French Prairie in the data center. We actually made it hosted and we took all that data off of our servers and put it on the company servers. And that was for several reasons. One is we don't have, it falls under security because we don't have enough really money or methods. There would never be enough methods to protect all that data. So if someone took a rack of servers out of our data center here, they would have a lot of student information and a lot of staff information. The way they host at companies is they parse that data into tiny pieces and then they duplicate it in like all over us, what they call a server farm. And so if someone takes a rack of servers out of a company data center, there would not be enough. Oh, sorry. there wouldn't be enough information because it's gonna be in such tiny pieces for anybody to steal anyone else's identity or anything like that. So that was a big one for us. We did that in March. The other thing that's provided is stability. So before, when lots of teachers hit Power School to do their grading a few times a year, those servers would fail every time. They were quite old, and they've been up ever since. We've had 100% uptime, especially during grading periods. So that's been huge for people. Jimmy, if you want to scroll down just a little bit, sorry that. Okay. We have a couple of things under access here, and again, you have access to this list for later. It can get kind of long. If you have questions about the technical words in here, let me know. One of the big things is Cipriano is our preschool that's just across 214 here. They had a wireless bridge that was on top of our building over to them, and it really didn't work well, and it was a dead spot for mobile service. So it was a safety issue to not have them connected to our voice over IP system consistently. And now they've got what we call dark fiber, which just means that it's not as capable as becoming a big fiber line, but they don't really need anything big. They're using lots of iPad apps over there. The phones were a big thing. So now they've got a stable network connection over there. We doubled bandwidth in the last year, so you can only go as fast, all those things that I think everybody was here last spring when we talked about all the technology around the district and the connectivity outside. You can only go as fast as your slowest thing. So we instituted a new firewall and also flipped a switch for more bandwidth because we could. So that doubled in the last year. We were just talking today about how last year at this time we were streaming the World Cup in a lot of places, and doesn't happening this year, but streaming does not seem to be an issue any longer. Down a little bit more, Jenny, I think the big highlight, oh yeah, there was an old phone system here that was causing a lot of problems with phone routing and wasting a lot of staff time, particularly in main offices, because they couldn't get the phones to route the right way. Especially when people switch jobs. So we deprecated that old phone system and cut the bridge to that, and now we have solely our new phone system. And it's been so long, we're looking at upgrading that phone system one more time because the ridiculously old phone system didn't even have an interface that we could use. It was all command lines. So it was like the white language on a black background, and you had to know the command, kind of like what you saw today, but so much more difficult than that block coding. So we're glad that's gone. Maybe one more under efficiency. I'm not remembering what it was. Okay. So any questions about those milestones or any of the terms that you see on there that might be confusing?
No, but I have a question about the last time you were here that I'd like to follow up on. I think at the time, our middle schoolers did not have Chromebooks, or maybe our students at one of the schools did not have Chromebooks.
That's right.
What's that? Do all of our kids have Chromebooks?
Yes.
Okay. So at one point, I think the goal was to purchase Chromebooks. Do our kids have new Chromebooks?
K5 has new Chromebooks and the middle levels has some new Chromebooks. Yes.
Okay. And so does that mean our middle schoolers kept their Chromebooks from last year?
Yeah, we had about a 64% loss and breakage rate. So they either came back broken or they just didn't come back. I did pick one up at Canby High School the other day, so some of them are cropping up in different places.
So our middle schoolers have Chromebooks.
Yes.
They all have. So at one point they each had
The middle schoolers actually, they don't have a dedicated Chromebook, they have enough Chromebooks in every class so that every kid has one. So they're not carrying a Chromebook around with them.
Okay, like they used to.
Right, that was last year, and well, yes, ever since COVID. All right, so the last big thing on this milestone list is we had a November conference, the 21st and the 20th and the 21st. And we did like the geeky thing by just gauging all of the connections in the commons, because we've always had connectivity issues there. And we had upgraded the access points in there. The maximum last year at this time was 250 connections in the cafeteria and the large commons. This year, I think our maximum was during those conferences, so we had every single person in the district. Every educator in the district was at the high school. It was 789. So it was a proud moment for us. It was 3 times as many as we've ever had in that building before, or in that space in that building before. All right, any other questions about these? So Jenny, that last one, efficiency, at the bottom of that slide deck. Sorry, on this slide. On that slide. So these are all the things that we've saved money on. There were a lot of duplicate services that we had here, and we just condensed all of those. So a lot of the things here, and I put on there whether they were annual savings or saving them per year, or if they were one-time savings, because we did give up some contracts. We had some old hardware that had expensive licensing and failed frequently. We got rid of most of it. I think all of it's gone at this point. Now we're just putting other new things in place to make sure things like power supplies, so that if things fail, electricity fails, we can still run those servers for a certain period of time. Which is important because our phones are voice over IP, and if we lose switches or servers, we can't call in and out of buildings. So keeping those alive for a little bit of time is a pretty important thing to get kids home safely. And then we had a lot of contracts to address some lack of expertise in technology. We gave up those contracts. So that's some of the savings that you see here. So the milestones are all the things that are going better than they were, but we're doing it for less money. So some of those, that takes a lot of real estate at the top, isn't it, to me? So you just scroll down to the bottom.
So these are money saved.
This is money saved, yeah.
And where does that money go?
So when we talked about it last spring, Sarah Bishop brought up the fact that there's never been a refresh budget before. So some of this is going to refresh. And then
what does that mean? What is refresh?
So when we bought new Chromebooks for kids in K-5 and partial and middle school, it came out of this budget. And then teacher refresh is happening right now. We're starting to offer Mac computers, Apple computers, as well as PCs. And those new will replace about 1/3 of the teaching staff this year. Their technology, because the goal is to have technology out there that's no more than 4 years old. The money's also getting spent on this.
So that's a total of $4 million.
No, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, the total right now is $736,555. 59 cents.
And how much of that was to replace Chromebooks?
About, I have to look back at the purchase order. I think it was about $150,000 on Chromebooks.
For K to 5th.
Yeah, and then some middle level. So what we did is we took all of the numbers across the district and made sure that every building had one device per kid. So in K1, that means an iPad. And in second, that means a Chromebook. And then the middle level decided, since kids weren't carrying around a Chromebook, they actually needed more than one per kid. And then we gave them a 10% overage on top of that, just for new kids. If there was a rash of new enrollments. Or for whatever they needed those Chromebooks for. It was a variety of things, testing. Sometimes if they had needed a one person, they were using the Chromebook, or if they needed Chromebooks for testing rather than iPads, they had an overage for that.
So Mac computers for teachers, how much is that?
We spent, so we have both Dell and Mac, so we have PC options and Mac options. I think it was about the same. I think we spent 150,000 on both of those, and the Macs are actually less expensive than the. Because Mac gives quite a big discount to education. The PC that we chose is is one that's easily adaptable. So it comes with a bigger screen if someone has a second family, those kinds of things. Just the same types of tools that Mac has built in. It adapts to hardware.
So when you say that there was damaged equipment that came back. Were you able to send that back in order for reimbursement or anything, or no?
Oh, no, this would be like broken Chromebooks that came back from students. So the 64% loss and breakage, that was in.
Or just a loss?
Yeah, a lot of them just didn't come back. Chromebooks are pretty hard to trace. If they're on our network, we can find them usually, or at least we can nail down which building they're in. But tracking it back to a kid if it, you know, if they haven't logged into it or. You know, and the exact location at the Valor Middle School would be really difficult. If they're off our network, we did just recently, what we can do is put a message on them that says, please return this to Woodburn School District, which is how I knew that there was one in Camden, because they called me and said, we have one of your Chromebooks. We can also make them kind of unusable. So it tells them to bring it back and it won't log them into our Google domain. So we started making those moves, but we're doing it slowly because a lot of those are out in buildings and they just were sitting in a closet somewhere and people pull them out and use them. And then, you know, we don't want to have 12,000 of those come back to us and we're trying to reactivate them. So we're doing it slowly.
So you mentioned 150 and 150, that's 300.
Yeah, I think it's
the
your exact
remaining
numbers.
I'm just curious where the remaining funds went.
Yeah, it's, I budgeted for the things that I need to pay for, so that included the refresh.
Wouldn't that be the 736?
Well, the refresh in addition to like, as an example, there's a piece of software that we're talking about with student services that they want to kind of integrate in. That's been paid for out of ESSER funds. So it's those kinds of things that it won't absorb that whole amount, but I would imagine personnel, like there are lots of things that you're not seeing on this list. Personnel,
Is that the 736?
the replacement. I don't know where every dollar of that went.
I guess I'm not asking for a dollar amount. Like, I guess when I'm saying that amount is that, and I'm just curious, you mentioned about 300,000, which would be a direct service to students because they have a device. The question is, that means there's a remainder of about 350. Is that a direct service to student?
Yeah,
But you're, I'm hearing,
this is not
I'm
money
hearing you
that's in my
say,
budget anymore.
oh, it's not there.
No, not all of it. No, it's just overall district savings.
Just this last year's budget that was saved and then it went back into the balance to start the year, so.
We just budget.
Right now.
Exactly.
Okay.
Other questions about cost savings? All right. So the last thing on my list is our department goal, which has been interesting. Over the last year, we've really honed our I messed it all up because the kids were. There we go. Okay. So it was great. I asked each person when they set their own personal goals, professional goals, personally, I asked for what they thought a department goal should be, and they all said customer service. It was kind of varying degrees of it. One of our goals is to decrease the average time that tickets are open. So we've been harvesting information. We worked hard last year to really hone how we routed tickets. We use a help desk system called Web Help Desk, and people email in with their issue just in the body of the email, it turns into a ticket. We delegate those tickets twice a day. So someone comes in the morning, they delegate all the tickets out to people who can solve those problems. And then we are working on those tickets along with project work and other things during the day, and we delegate those tickets again at 3 o'clock every day, so that people, the idea is that they plan ahead before they leave for the day, and then they may start in a building if there's a concentration of tickets there. So they're all organized by building and then we see the person, obviously. So that integrates with our Active Directory, which is, so it kind of like, we don't hand enter the information in that system, it gets fed by another system.
And so how many tickets do you get?
So we have solved 2,386 tickets since July 1. So that's when we started the goal, because last year we really focused on how those tickets are both getting routed and how they get addressed. It was new, we were a new team. We implemented a new routing system within that those tickets, because a lot of them were just going into cyberspace. We were sure, and it was a very tiered system. So I could see everybody's tickets, but they couldn't see each other's tickets. So the nice thing about that, what's really increased that number of or our ability to solve a lot of tickets, is that when I'm in a building, if it's Heritage, I can look up all of Heritage's tickets and I can solve whatever is possible there for me to solve. I couldn't do that before because we couldn't all see each other's tickets. So 2,386 tickets since July 1st, and of course, summer's light, it was 135 tickets in July. And the average number of days a ticket was open in July was 9.08. So that goes back to that average time. We're trying to cut that down. So in August, we had 514 tickets, and the average time was 9 days and 9.04 days that a ticket was open.
9 days to solve the issue?
Yeah, but that was open. So from the time that the ticket comes in and gets delegated, the exchange between the person is often long, because they'll say like, the internet's broken. And then we have to track down, okay, is it really the internet, or is it a switch that we've lost, or maybe it was just that computer that wasn't hooking up to the wireless, so we have to track down the problem. And so that is, and then we loop back, we're working on looping back with the client to make sure the problem is actually solved. So from the time the ticket gets submitted to the time that the client says, yes, it's solved, you can close it, was 9.08 days in July, 9.04 days in August. And then in September, we got 776 tickets, which is the highest. I mean, it's going to be the highest month anyway, because teachers are coming back. And they're all trained to connect in their classrooms. They're forgetting their passwords. They can't remember their voicemail password, those kinds of things. You get to get through all of that. But we solved them in less time. We actually only had an open ticket for an average of 7.46 days in September. And then October was the last month. I did kind of just for that first little quarter, because tickets vary a lot from now on. October, we had 454 tickets. We actually had them sit a little bit longer. They sat for 7.64 days. So we're working on, and that tickets don't include things like people can call in to a help desk number, and sometimes they get the answer on the phone, or somebody just gets up and comes over, depending on how extreme of the problem is. So those won't be included in these tickets. Also the project work. So at everything you saw on the milestones list, that really wasn't, those weren't tickets. They might have been motivated by tickets, but those were actually projects that folks were working on. So those are not documented in tickets either. Otherwise they would sit for long periods of time. And then our daily tasks, like we don't have a project secretary, or a program secretary rather, or program specialist. So the purchasing falls to the people in our department, or normally we would delegate that to someone else. So we have project work, phone calls, and then all of the kind of daily tasks that keep everything going
that are outside of that ticketing system.
How many people on your team?
9,
Do they all go to buildings?
yes.
And it takes us a whole week to close
Well,
the ticket?
that's what it's our goal. It's coming down. So in July, it was, just over 9 days that it sat. In October, we got it down to 7.5.
So if we have 9 people, if you have 9 people on your team, how many schools do we have? 7? How many schools do we have?
Well, we're working at Bridges and Cipriano as well.
Okay, so do we like send one staff member to each building? How does that work?
No, it's usually by concentration of tickets. So September's a good example. We were tackling a huge volume of tickets all at one time. And so that we orchestrated, our approach there was, okay, where are the highest number of tickets? Okay, it's WHS. So we'd sit down at 3:30, 4 o'clock and say, okay, who's going to the high school first? And then what do you need? Somebody needs speakers, so they would gather all of those things and go straight to the high school in the morning and sell as many tickets as possible. So these days it's more like what we're gauging is what's important. So if it has to do with student delivery, it's number 1. So if somebody can't get their projector to work, we're gonna show up right away to fix that. There are other issues, but if it has to do with student content and delivery, it's first on the list. So it's not necessarily by building, it's more by need.
Also, I think the ticket average is kind of skewed. Sometimes someone will write in and say, I can't get to a such and such, they'll say, I can't get to a website, but they won't tell us which website. So we'll write them back on the ticket and say, can you give us the URL to the website? And then we never hear back.
Right.
And so, most likely it's because they were able to get to the website, so they don't respond, they don't bother responding to the ticket. So the ticket will stay open for 2 weeks. And then close because there's never been a response. So that ticket, even though we responded within 45 minutes of the initial email, the ticket was actually open for 2 weeks because we never heard back from it. So there are some ways that it can get to, or if people are asking for, I need a Bluetooth keyboard and we don't have one, so we have to order one from Amazon. So we have to wait for it to arrive and then bring it out to the staff member. So that thing is open that entire time waiting for the shipment from Amazon. So there.
But Amazon delivers overnight.
Sometimes, some technology has been on back order for a long time, so it just depends on what it is for people.
It depends.
Yeah. Does that make sense though? Like it's a variety of things, and sometimes if they solve it themselves, then that ticket will sit until it auto closes.
And auto closes itself, it's like the setup like that.
So this is one of the cues that we created. This is part of the honing that happened last year when people weren't responding or didn't give us enough information and then didn't respond and those tickets were sitting too long. One of the cues we added was that we were waiting for a client response. So our goal is not to have any open tickets. They get delegated, they go straight to a person. And they either are waiting for a tech response or they're waiting for a client response. And if we set it to awaiting client response, after it sits for 2 weeks and then it auto closes itself, the client then gets a message and can reopen that ticket by just responding to it.
So most tickets are they from teachers?
When it's variety, it's a huge variety.
I'm just kind of curious. Yes, I mean, I do remember working years ago, having to do that. So I could just imagine having to wait for a week to close a ticket and not be able to use the computer or something. So I'm just thinking of teachers who maybe for what reason don't respond to emails because they're in the classroom all day.
Yeah, and we make an effort to check in with them as well. And there are some people that we know are just really busy, so we will do research. There was one request just recently from the Welcome Center, and it was a technology we didn't know about, and so we did all the research, and then when that ticket auto closed, because we hadn't heard back from the person, we had it ready for them. When they reopened it.
Okay,
So-
so it sounds like those tickets that remain open is more by choice on the individual who submitted.
I think we're just busy. And if we don't have enough
They haven't
information.
responded, so.
Yeah.
It's not by choice.
Yeah, we didn't want those tickets to sit for too long, because one thing, we live off this ticketing system, and so if those are sitting open, they are part of our to-do list, and it kind of gets in the way of everything else that we're supposed to be doing. So that awaiting client responses really cleaned up a lot of that stuff. But still, like I said, allows the client to open it back up if they still are in need. Just by responding. Any other questions?
I have a follow-up question. So last we asked about how your department reaches out to parents in the community. And you mentioned about doing something in the fall. Did that happen?
Yeah,
What is the
so we did some
plan?
things around the responsible user agreement, which went out in August. And then I've done a couple of technology nights just based on the need in the building. That's voice, we have what do we call parent involvement specialists, or it's a new position here. And I've been working with them a lot about the different needs in the buildings that they work with. So I was over at Heritage doing a like a internet safety talk. They were really concerned about screen time. So we talked about some different strategies that parents could use with kids around screen time at different ages. January, the middle level is doing a safety talk. I think that we're talking about cyberbullying and a couple of other topics, and keeping Bully connected with me with a local agency. I'll work with them because it's a broad number of topics. And I said I can only cover probably a couple of these, but if we have more people, we could do more. So
What do you mean?
well, just bodies. So it's not, we weren't like at Heritage, we weren't in one big group. People moved around in small groups by choice, from place to place to learn about different things.
So you're saying you need to have more staff?
Yes, well, it's mostly, I'm doing those presentations, not the technology department themselves. So, yeah, it's putting technology people in front of an audience sometimes doesn't capitalize on their best skills.
So you go out and you present to the places that you talked about?
Yeah.
But you don't take your team with you?
No. No, it's offered to them, but no.
There's a choice.
Yeah. So the second goal up there is that, and you did a little bit when you talked about how long tickets sit or the ability for people to get help quickly. So customer satisfaction is one that definitely came up in a multitude of ways for multiple people on the team. So we're definitely focusing on how we can make sure clients are served and happy and the problem's been solved all the way. We focus on that a lot in our staff meetings and then any kind of PD that we're doing, somebody will grab a ticket and say, how would you respond to this? And then if it's done, how do you check back in with the client, or does this, deserve more attention for some reason? So we're working hard on that. We're going to gauge that with some surveys that we'll send out. Our ticketing system sends out a survey that's the same survey. It's every time you have a closed ticket. So for some people, that would be a lot of the same survey. If we decided that probably was not going to give us the results that we're really looking for in terms of accuracy.
Because isn't it sometimes that people, it's so repetitive, they just don't want to answer?
They just don't answer it. Yeah, they stop answering it, and then we don't know what to gauge. So we're doing it through the promises, and it's just a quick survey that we'll do quarterly to see where people are at as far as satisfaction. Anything else?
I don't have a question, but I just want to speak to the piece connected to parent engagement. I think one thing that we've talked about as a board is connecting with our students, parents, and families. And if your department's not connecting with our parents and students, I think that is something to talk about. Maybe your department.
How could we be of service?
Well, in connecting, being in schools. Like when you go and present, you say you go by yourself, like your team doesn't go with you, like wouldn't it be a good idea for our community parents to know? IT?
Like, we could take that into consideration. It's a lot of flexing of hours and then they're less focused on the customer service aspect of it. Because we have to accommodate for. You know, where they go at night. But yeah, we can entertain that. Just,
So you mentioned that you connected with the parent involvement coordinator.
yes.
Did you get any feedback how effective that was or not?
That's a good, I don't know if they did an exit ticket for parents that night. But I can check with them, and that would be something we definitely consider for when we do the Valor French Prairie night in January.
When in January? Or is that not
It's
set
moved
yet?
like 3 times, it is set. I'm gonna have to look at the district calendar, you know,
The middle school, right?
yeah, oh, you could know,
January
18.
18?
Yes.
Thanks, sorry. All right, anything else? Thank you.
I have one quick question. So let's say parents can't attend that. Is there other options that they can reach out as a follow-up night or that hasn't been set yet? Just out of curiosity.
So for the other nights, we took the slide deck with, and I just put a lot of links as resources for parents. We put it on the website and we push it out through Class Dojo.
Oh,
So I don't think Class Dojo, we push it out through Remind and put it on the websites. It's just adapted for the middle level. Because it's kind of the same concept.
A suggestion, maybe in the open night, you can take Giselle.
Oh,
And then
and
they
Juliana.
can show, and Juliana, and they can show what they've done
Yeah.
with their apps.
Perfect.
And showing 10 for parents, parents will be very.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
suggestion.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Moving from IT to investment and reports.
Annually, we have. Annually, we have this opportunity to come before the board and share student investment accounts. So tonight it's an opportunity to share last year's investment of the student investment account. So the student investment account, I don't know if you recall, but it has 4 components to it. Investment the state has made through the corporate activity tax to be able to support class size, well-rounded education, instructional time, and health and safety. A couple years ago, around 2020, there was a number of listening sessions and a number of feedback time with students, with staff, and with the community. To think about those categories, think about what are the investments and the priorities. But we're reducing class size, well-rounded education, instructional time, and health and safety. And it's curious that what was identified then is very similar to what was identified through the strategic plan listening sessions. That's increasing instructional assistance to provide supports, increasing licensed special education staff at the middle schools and high school. The well-rounded education, we saw a couple examples tonight of how that priority of increasing STEM activities at the middle school levels with the activities that the 2 students shared tonight. Increasing access to the fine arts, the increase of pathways of CTE, increasing instructional time before school and some into summer school, and then prioritizing that health and safety and students' mental health and well-being. So with those priorities in mind, then I was taking a look at like what was
that one. Look at what our allocation was, $4.9 million, and how to address those priorities. And much of that was invested into staff. So the student investment account, we were able to hire 10 educational assistants, special education teachers, resource teacher. I won't go through the list, but you have them in front of you with those different FTE that we're able to fund at a student investment account to meet those prioritized areas. Pointing out that there are staff and FTE which within each of those categories. Then annually, I have an opportunity to reflect, well, okay, we invested, how did that go for us? What were some of those highlights? What did we learn? What do those investments mean, and how do we reflect and move forward? Some of the highlights last year, again, this is all 23 information, that emphasis that was placed on to student mental health and support through the addition of social worker, a behavior specialist, to really think about how do we create that system of MTSS addressing the behavioral health, the behavior side of that pyramid, and then thinking about what does that look like for tiers 2, tier 3 with behavior specialists. So those are a couple of the highlights for the student investment account. And then thinking about some of those challenges and barriers that we went through and experienced. When you bring forward and hire additional people, that could be a challenge in itself to make those hires. Last month, we had the opportunity to listen to Director Tucker. She shared some of the work and the efforts that were being done to recruit, to retain, and to support new hires. So we experienced some of those challenges as we sought to hire additional people. And then when you hire them, being able to provide training for them. That was a challenge as well, not having access and resources to sub, because sometimes one of the ways that we provide training by subbing them out, getting them time away from their regular job duties to be able to provide them with that training. So that was a challenging experience to provide that training, that onboarding. The efforts are being made to retain them, and I won't go through all those. Nikki, Dr. last month, dove deeply into, but how do we continue to grow our own staff? So those are some of the challenges that we face, but with those challenges come opportunities for learning and thinking about, okay, we need to do something different. And this plan really is informed and guided by our community and the feedback that we gathered. And there's different ranges of what community feedback looks like. The state of Oregon provides this matrix here. And so last year we lived a lot in that informative consult area where we gathered feedback. Feedback was gathered through the surveys, was gathered those listening sessions, the strategic plan. Those listening sessions and gave us a lot of feedback for what was the priority. And the priorities were really similar to what was gathered back in 2020. But as we continue to think about how do we improve and get better, we're making this making this a priority to move into that, involve and collaborate, by taking advantage of the work that's being done by the communications department and the family involvement specialists and the family involvement plans that each of the schools have. So we can continue to move on this matrix and move into deeper levels of engagement and to involve and to collaborate, move beyond the informal consult. And then some of those, what are those priorities that remain? As we think about our well-rounded education, and our dual language program is important to know that. So providing that dual language specialization program with OSU teachers, making sure that the materials are available, that we're having the materials in Spanish. At the secondary level, this is a particular focus on language arts. At the elementary level, making sure that our materials are all translated for Russian as well. And then providing that instructional coaching, the mentoring that goes along with and implementing those materials. It's a learning curve. And so supporting our teachers to be able to implement the new materials. So that's the academic side, but we have to also be considering and prioritizing the social emotional behavioral health side of things. That's the coordination of that tier 1 approach to support students' connectivity, their sense of belonging in schools with PBIS, with positive behavior intervention system. That we had a previous report to the board on, and establishing some of those additional community partnerships to be able to support it at the tiers 2 and tier 3. And then coordinating all that work. So as we build and grow, coordination and integration is an important aspect of it. So we are efficient and effective and building on to the programs and the services that are available for kids. These are last year's priorities, last year's investments, and this year we'll have an opportunity to talk about what those are moving forward for the future for this year. This was last year's snapshot.
Are you projecting that this will work? Like, do we have an idea of what that may look like?
Well, the feedback, you heard mentioned of the parent involvement specialists, and those are positions that are new into student investment account this year that weren't in the 22-23. So think about what are those priorities. We looked at our data and think about what works, what are areas of gaps or need, and how do we invest to take care of those needs. So we have that opportunity every year to come back to this and think about what do we really need to invest in and prioritize. Shot 22-23 student investment.
Do we project for these funds to change in dollar amount?
Yeah, for this year, 23-24, we are at 5.6 million. From the previous amount of the 4.9 in 22-23.
And the health services plan, is that the nurses in the schools?
The staff that were hired for that were the behavior specialists and the social worker. The 5.5 behavior specialists and an additional social worker.
Was that in Success or just in different buildings?
I believe that was at the middle school level.
The social worker was hired for elementary, and then the behavior specialists are probably in all.
Thank you, Dr. Christie.
And the parent involvement coordinator, is that in every building or is that just in K-5?
That was an investment for this year at the 22-23, so you or 23-24, so you don't see them in this report. If there's interest in learning about the investments for this year, we can come back and provide a report on that to give greater context to the board. We have 2.5 of those parent involvement specialists.
Currently. But that's through K through
K through 8.
8.
We can come back and try to really feel greater. I'm looking at our snapshot of what our budget is for this year and the stuff, the staff that have been filled, and I see 2.5 on there, but there are the additional hire. Maybe the spreadsheet I'm looking at hasn't been updated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you for that presentation.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is confirmation items. We have meeting minutes, personnel, surplus property disposal report, funding proposals and applications. Do we have any questions? If we do not, I would entertain a motion.
Can move the motion for the confirmation items as they were presented.
Thank you. A second, is there a second? Thank you, Rosa. All in favor of adopting the confirmation items as presented, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries with a 5-0 vote. Item number 6, board action items. So we have old business. And new business. What is separate? There is no. There's no old business. All right, so new business, we have student investment account grant agreement. That is on page 46.
Even with the payment student investment account, we joined up our director, so.
It's just the night of the student investment account. So what you have in front of you is the grant agreement between our school district and the Oregon Department of Education. And this is a very legalese type document where they outline some of the broader purposes of the student investment account, how much funding we get, the type of reporting we have to do when we claim funds. And this is the new requirement this year that we bring this agreement in front of you. Typically, the superintendent or myself is just allowed to sign the grant agreement. But this year ODE has asked that we present this to the board. So that is why you have this in front of you this evening. Again, it's very legalese heavy. But I'm happy to answer any questions that I can regarding this agreement. And this agreement is very similar to prior years' agreements and what we typically see with most of our grants. It's not hugely unique. I would say one of the unique things about this one specifically is the longitudinal performance growth targets. That you guys should be familiar with those as you've already seen them.
If these targets are not met, what's the next step?
Then we work directly with the ESC and with ODE on remediation steps. So what do we need to do next
to be able to meet these targets. And my understanding is we'll meet with them several times throughout the year, including the ESD, to review these in our progress towards these. So hopefully, if we're not meeting them, we can have steps in place already.
So during the grant period, how often do you guys meet with them again?
With ODE and the ESD? ODE, we don't meet as frequently with them. It's usually half year. The ESD has continuing ongoing sessions, usually quarterly.
And so let's say you're not meeting the goal that they set, what's the remedy days then? Period.
To be able to meet the goals, that would be something we have to work on between us, the ESD and ODE, depending upon whatever the target is.
Yeah, these are new measures, and I don't know if the state has identified yet what their remedies are going to be for districts that don't meet those goals.
So this agreement would be starting, did it start this year?
Yes, this is the agreement for this biennium. So yes, it's already started back on July 1, essentially. This agreement went into effect. They just got it to us about 2 weeks ago, though.
So since it started in July, how often have you guys already met with them?
We haven't yet, so we met to develop the goals, but not to review our progress towards the goals. We've reviewed goals internally, but not with the ESD or ODE yet.
So if you reviewed it internally, what's your determination? Are you meeting those goals?
I don't feel like I can speak to that because my main piece of this is monitoring the spending of it.
The financial one.
Yeah.
Is this?
I have some data that we'll share later in the agenda.
Is this similar to the goals in the integrated fund?
Yeah. Because the student investment account is part of the integrated.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question.
Any other questions?
So since they're behind and getting this paperwork to you, and let's say you do meet with them and they see that you are meeting the goals. And we're already halfway through the school year. And so can some of these funds be utilized for summer school, or are they strictly for certain avenues?
So the student investment account funds are set up specifically, we have to submit a budget plan to ODE based upon what Juan discussed in his prior presentation. That has already been established for 23-24. So these goals align with what's in the integrated plan and the student investment account plan. So we can do budget shifts throughout the year, but these funds have already been budgeted to support these end goals.
And budget shifts can be adjusted throughout the year, varying with.
Absolutely, the budget can be adjusted throughout the year, but I will say most of our funding sources in special revenue funds, including the SIA and the general fund, is staffing. So if we're gonna make shifts like that, then we have to look at the bigger picture of can we make that staffing shift? Are we looking at eliminating a position to fund something else?
Thank you.
We have no other questions. Entertain motion to approve.
I move the motion to accept the student investment Is it a student investment account? The student investment account grant agreement.
All in favor of approving the student investment account agreement, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes with the underscore. Thank you. In our, we have a future agenda items as the next item. I know that our list is lengthy, but I don't know if there's any other suggestions or what you would like to report on.
We already talked about it, but regarding the presentation, safety and all the incidents and whatnot, that's, I think we did mention it last time. Talk about that.
Right, and that each school would
Yeah.
talk about it in the presentation.
Yeah.
Was there something you'd like to focus on that you would like schools to include?
I mean, I'm at the starting point, so I want to kind of see where, there may be a gap in the process if there is. I mean, that's why I want to look at it to see where it is, what could be leading up to it. What could be the issues. I mean, I have an idea of the issues, but hearing it directly from the schools, I think would be very beneficial instead of just that, I won't say assuming, but I want direct information, whatnot, to be able to hopefully dissect it and be able to actually assess situations.
Okay, so like what was presented today,
Yeah, but
but
more in general, because this was, like this one presentation, again, going back, it was too gang related. But I want a full, general violence,
so you want data
on the incidents. With regards to fights, even the drugs that are being lauded in school, because I hear it all the time. Kids walk in, they're smoking weed, doing vapes in bathrooms and that kind of stuff to see what is being done. To first create more data and then can't believe we just said that, but really figure out something to build on that. Because it is very concerning for, as a board member, but also the parents that I've heard. So. And
Yes, I would from the high school, that data that they shared was like what they pulled and has been reported. So those are the referrals and behavior incidents. So each school is planning to come forward and share that through their school reports. If you're on the behavior referrals that we received, you heard about the different fights, the drugs, the gang involvement, and what are those referrals are based on behaviors. So each school will be planning to come with their snapshot, their data. Regarding those.
What about students? Have we heard directly from the students themselves? I know that they could pose a risk looking at it in long, like, I work in the juvenile system, so snitches get stitches, if you will. I don't want to go that route, but see what I'm saying? But it'd be great to hear from students, in my perspective.
Yeah, that student piece is a great data point to have as well. As schools are in different places of having that available. That they can share with from different schools and with the boards. I know I have some data now from the high school on how some students. So I'll share with the board the data that came from students from the high school. That was been part of the next presentation, but it's at least now available.
Since snitches get stitches, they probably won't report it.
Is that from this school year? What you were referring to, is that for this school year? Yeah.
What's it called?
Safe Oregon.
Safe Oregon.
And we have 2 students who recognized today that are part of that. Cool. Association, which is we do get from bullying, or by our content, so kids text or email, yeah, and it's confidential.
Was the safe Oregon in place last year?
Right for years.
How many?
How many would be it's been in place since before, before COVID.
I do want to say that the high school has improved in the times that I have visited in the past. Definitely from just visiting once, just getting the feel of the environment. Definitely has changed, so it's been a lot of hard work invested into the high school.
That'd be good to build on. Yeah.
They also mentioned the absences, was like, what was it, 42%? But I don't know if it was overall the entire school district. And what was the chronic absences within the school district?
That was for
right?
high school only.
We had them eighth graders, but then they say, oh, you were talking about this, Mrs. Dixon was talking about the overall. The state, the percentage state, statewide. And how much it come?
I think it's 52.
Yeah.
Yeah, last year we had the 55% of students getting regular attenders and chronic absenteeism is a challenge that was being faced all over the state. It'll be a part of the ongoing reports to the school provide, like here's where our attendance rates are, here's what we're doing to connect kids and engage them in school. But a snapshot of where their data shows it would be important for us to share.
The next item is we have board calendar. And we have here our board work session in January. As well as regular board meeting in January and going into February. To the board work session. So I'm wondering, Superintendent Barrios, for January 23rd, will we have the school presenting then? Because we talked about doing a visit around that same week. So just for us, I think, to plan ahead. That there'll be a school visit likely
The week of the 22nd.
Yes.
Yes, we'll have two school reports on the 23rd. We'll be hearing from Valor and from Heritage. So I will send the board a poll, perhaps, since we have two schools, we could do one the week of. And we do plan for that. It's a Thursday. Today was the Tuesday board report, and then Thursday afternoon is a school visit. Plan for that, and I'll send a poll, so we can try to find another time the week after to be able to do the two visits rather than the one. So please pencil in the
25th.
Thursday is at the 2 days later. Yeah, that's 25th.
What time was that?
The afternoon. Maybe we do both schools and we just do Heritage and right over to Valor. Walk over to Valor.
What time?
At noon, if you just kind of pencil in noon to the, to 3, maybe we do the two schools. Valor Heritage. Right next door to each other.
For some reason, I thought it was two of those.
So I think we're ready to move on to the last agenda item. Yeah, executive session. So at this time, we'll recess the regular meeting for an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602I to review and evaluate the employment related performance of the chief executive officer of any public body public officer, employee, or does not request an open hearing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To the airport.
Right now? Yes, ma'am.
I pick up my husband.
Might use the restroom too, since.
Oh, yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
Another feeling. Oh my God.
I can just do the injury. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. Wishing you all a great holiday season with your family and friends. With no other agenda items listed, I now move to adjourn the meeting at 9:32.
People watching.
No, I know, right?